there are a ton of questions on Edcite. So let's start with a simple one that many ELA teachers use, which is a multiple choice question with the option to do a Part A, Part B. So on Edcite, when you want to create a question, you're always going to go up to the Questions menu, click Create Question, and you can choose how you look at the various question types on Edcite. I like to look at this in terms of student action, so I click on Student Action. A multiple choice question is a select answer as opposed to a written answer or an image question. So I'm going to stick with select answer, and I'm going to look for multiple choice in this list. I can see that multiple choice is number 005, so I click on that, and I click Create Question. Now on all of your question editors, whether it is a written response or an image-based question or a drag and drop or a multiple choice like this, you're going to see the question editor is set up the same way. So I can name my question up in the top left. So I'm going to call this my ELA demo Part A, B question. You're going to have the option for instructions over here on the top left again. I guess that's the top left and this is the middle left. And so I could put in my directions here like please read the passages and answer the questions. And that's very similar to what you'll see on those state tests. So if you want to have a very aligned assessment experience, I would recommend putting in the general directions. Sometimes on state tests they'll be even more specific, like today you will read 2 passages about baseball. Read both passages and then answer the questions. So whatever you want those directions to say, you put in there. Underneath that, you're going to see enter stimulus such as passage, image, video, or audio clip. In here is where you're going to put your text or your video, or I guess your image or audio clip. And so a lot of times I would put a passage in here. What's nice with Edcite is that you can just click in the box to copy and paste your text in there. Or if you need to do advanced editing, you can always click on the pencil. So I can click on the pencil to also copy and paste content in here, type in here, and then do more advanced editing, like changing my font sizes, changing my font style, and any additional updates that I want to make. So let's go ahead and copy and paste in a text, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, part of the public domain. So I've copied, or let's go in here, let's select, and let's copy and paste chapter 1 into my passage. So that copy and pasted pretty well. Sometimes if you are copying and pasting from a site that has more formatting built in than this, you're going to be bringing in hyperlinks, additional formatting from that other website. So if you notice it's looking a bit weird, or like, why is it bringing in these links and these different things from another platform, I would not just paste it in this way. I would actually go into the pencil, and then I would edit, paste as text, and then paste it in, because that's going to guarantee that your text is going in without those hyperlinks, without those additional features being in there. So we've got our passage in here. If, let's say, I wanted to also, I don't know, bold something, underline some of my words, I could go through and I could do that. Something that a lot of teachers like to do, and it's aligned with the state assessments, is to add paragraph numbers. So if I, let's say, select all, so you can drag your cursor down or use the shortcut of Command A or Control A to select everything. Then you can click on these green number selected paragraphs button, and it's going to automatically add in that 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. Sometimes you might want to add, additional information at the top. So you can always enter to create another paragraph break, and I might say Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Make sure I spelled Carroll correctly. And I could go ahead and underline that. If I want to make both of these bold, I can do that. Maybe center them and possibly make them a little bit bigger. Okay. Oh, so sometimes weird things like that will happen where, because I put that right in front of the 1, it carried in the black background. I mean, if you liked that, you could totally keep that. But what I'm going to do is select that, clear the formatting, and then just do that again, because it seemed to have brought in. There we go. That looks much nicer. Formatting coming in when you're copying and pasting, whether it's from Microsoft Word, whether it's from another platform, using the copy and paste as plain text is going to be your best friend. Building my questions, I can again click to inline edit, or I can use the pencil to add in my extra formatting. So I might say, who wrote the book? Very simple question. And so I might put in Lewis Carroll. I might put in J.K. Rowling. I might put in myself. And I might put in Edcite. So, I can put in my different answer choices. If, let's say, J.K. Rowling had written this book, I would just click on the answer to set it. I can also add additional answer choices, and I can make this a multi-select question by clicking on this settings gear, clicking multi-select, and then that's going to let me set 2 or 3 answers. Okay, we're definitely not going to make 3 out of 4 answers the correct answer. So I'm going to get rid of those. I'm not going to make this a multi-select. If you do make this a multi-select, though, you can adjust the scoring. So if you want students to get penalized for selecting the wrong answers, you can do additive with negation. Independent true-false just assesses a point for each answer choice and gives the point based on whether they've selected it or not selected it. And more information about the types of multi-select scoring can be found with this green question mark. So I'm going to say done with that, and let's say I want to make this a part A, part B like we were talking about. I'm going to click add question part, add selected, and usually when building aligned assessment questions, your part A is asking about a specific skill, and part B is asking them to support their answer. So I might say, please select the 2 phrases that best support your answer. And so maybe I've got option 1, copy and paste it in here, option 2, option 3, option option 4. So I've got all of these in here, let's say, and again, to make it a multi-select, I click on the settings gear, multi-select, and I'm going to go ahead and say option 1 and option 3 are the correct answers. And if you want to randomize the order that students see A, B, C, D, I can always checkbox that. We can add that to part A as well. Okay, so I've got a part A, part B question. And you'll notice that as soon as I added that part B, this little icon here, A/B, appeared. And so if I click on this, it enables what we call part A/B scoring, which means that if they do not get part A correct, they cannot get credit for part B. This is important if part A is a skill question and part B is supporting their answer, because we don't want students to be able to support a wrong answer with evidence that's going to be automatically graded as correct. So you can build in that dependency, again, just like state assessments do. And for tags, if you are doing those part A, part B questions, and one is about the skill, one is about the evidence, I would recommend tagging at the part level. So you can choose to tag to specific standards at the question or part A and part B. So if, let's say, part A, now ignore the fact that the question was actually who wrote the book. We're going to pretend it's RI, and you'll notice I'm just typing in and it's automatically filtering those options. RI 6.4, actually we'll make it RL 6.4. RL 6.4. And you'll notice up here also that it also added the relevant Common Core state tag. And that's because Edcite has an internal crosswalk that automatically maps state standards that are exact matches to the Common Core or to other states. So you're automatically, you're always seeing content in the relevant standards, regardless of who created it and which state tag they added originally. If it's an exact match, you will see that. So RL 6.4 for CCSS is an exact match for Ohio RL 6.4. And then if I want to tag for part B, and I want to, let's say, make this one, get rid of this, I actually want this one to be RL 6.1. So you're going to see part A is 6.4, part B is 6.1. And if I want to make, part B a level 3 DOK, and maybe my part A is a level 2, whatever your depth of knowledge is on the question that you made. Now for both of these multiple choice questions, we're going to be likely looking at a lower DOK. But again, it depends on how you write the question and what skill you're asking students to do in that question. For ELA teachers, we're going to go into more question types just that you can select, but I want to go through these additional options right now. So if this were a writing question, I could add a rubric. So I would click in here to the rubric option. I could create a rubric from scratch. So adding my different areas of evaluation, making it worth a particular number of points, and then editing the criteria for each box. But if you don't want to start from scratch, you can head over to the rubric library and you can look for an existing rubric. You can go in, you can customize this, and you can add, let's say if you wanted to add a column for mechanics, you could go ahead and do that. So again, that's in the rubric library, and once you create a rubric or modify a rubric, it's going to be saved in your My Rubrics. If you are part of Edcite Schools, you are also going to see any rubrics that your team has shared with your district for all the teachers to use. So let's just for fun, we're going to add this rubric. And by default, the rubrics are hidden from students, but if you would like the students to see the rubrics while they are writing, you can uncheck this box. You can also print the rubrics for easy reference when students are taking the assessment, if you want them to have a printed rubric next to them, or if you just want to print it out for your own reference. This option just gives you the choice. Actually, let's pick one with a few more columns. Horizontal layout just switches it so the points run across the top and the categories run across the rows, or run across as rows. So that is your rubric option. Solution for ELA teachers is often something that I've seen teams use for exemplar responses. So this solution shows up in the student answer report. So when students submit, when they're looking at their report, they can click See Solution, and you can add in here, why. So on this Part A, Part B question, you could add in additional explanation as to why the answer was C, or why those two pieces of evidence supported the answer. Hence, and that is not something that I see often used by ELA teachers, but it's definitely something that you can use. It just makes a button at the top of the screen available to students that they can click on, and it will give them a little hint. Sources is if we're going to put in a link back, add in the copyright, the sourcing information, just to kind of show you what I mean. I'm just going to copy and paste in a link. So where I copy and pasted Alice in Wonderland from. So again, I've kind of gone through all of these different tabs. Settings, it's not as relevant for an ELA teacher because the protractor and the ruler, we don't use those too often. But in terms of text-to-speech and some of those other settings, you're going to set that at the assignment level. Now, one last thing I'm going to say for ELA teachers, a good tip, is that if I spend all of this time creating this passage, formatting it the way that I want, I like my directions up here, and let's say I don't want to have to just copy and paste that when I make my next question. When I save my question, I've got the option to go look at the question, go back to my questions. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll continue editing, and I will use the clone button up here to make a copy of my assignment, or of my question. I also can do that same function from my questions page. So from my questions page, I can go in, I can checkbox, I can use my little dot, dot, dot down here, and I can copy it. So whether you use the clone or you use the copy, it's going to create an exact replica of what I have built here. The first thing you are going to want to do is change the name so you don't get confused. So ELA Demo Essay. And as you can see, I've got my passage already done. So it's going to look identical to my first question. And then what I do is I add the question part that I want to do. So let's say I want students doing an essay response, add selected, and I go in and I just edit or delete part A and part B. So now I've got my essay completely ready to go. So I can put in my write your essay prompt and save it and send it to students. As I'm editing, I can constantly toggle over to that student view to get an idea of what it looks like for students. So I can see we've got the pre-stimulus directions, the passage with the scroll, And now we've got my essay. So again, I can save that, continue editing, and clone it, or go to my questions, checkbox it, copy, and I'm going to make this question a drag and drop order of events question. So like I did last time, because I want to keep using this passage, I'm going to just keep that the same. I'm going to add a question part. And for this one, I'm actually going to go into the all types. So similar to what we saw earlier, all types is going to show you that create question page where I can find the categories and then select my question type. When doing an order of events question, I recommend going to the Categorize Classify question and finding the order list answer 044. I'm going to click Add Question. And like I did last time, I'm deleting Part A. Okay. And now I've got this new option. So maybe I change this to say beginning of the story. We'll just say chapter. End of the chapter. And then maybe Alice takes a nap. Alice meets the rabbit. Alice falls into a hole. So, you know, this is definitely not in the correct order. You should actually write this in the order that it's meant to be. So I'm just going to put event number 2, event number 3. And if I needed to add more elements, I could put those in here. And if, let's say, I had images and I wanted to put in pictures, I could use the pencil, go to that picture symbol. I mean, for this question, we're not going to add anything, but I could. You know, I could select this chemistry set, and by the time it loads, go ahead and insert that select image. And to resize it, you know, I can just drag my cursor, make it smaller. So I've got that in there. When I click on the settings gear here, again, your settings gear on every question is going to give you advanced options. I can choose, do I want them dragging up to down or from side to side? If you don't want students scrolling a lot, or if you're going to have a lot of options in here, I highly recommend making it horizontal just to make sure that students aren't having to drag too far down. Label position, I could do top or bottom, and then it's going to randomize the order in which they see these drop options. And then I'm going to toggle over to student view to see what this looks like. You can see the beginning of the chapter, end of the chapter. I'm going to say first, Alice takes a nap, then event 2, event 3. You can check your answer, and I can see that it's scoring it correctly. So again, I can save that, go to my questions, checkbox, use my ... copy to make another question. Now, if, let's say, I wanted to, on this one, add in a second passage, you can use these plus signs to add additional readings, add additional chapters, excerpts, so students have to toggle. So I might say passage 2 is in here, and I might call this passage 2. So up here I'm naming each of my tabs. Passage 1. And so for the student view there, they're seeing Passage 1, Passage 2, which is in line with how a lot of assessment companies for the state tests format those passages. So again, I could change my question to be a select text item, go down here to add question part. I might see some question types in here from a shorter list, but again, I like to go to all types. Let's do a select answer, and there's select text from excerpt and select text from stimulus. Select text from excerpt is going to give students a very small section. Well, it doesn't have to be very small, but it's a smaller excerpt than your full passage that students are selecting from. Versus selecting text from the stimulus, you're having them look at the entire stimulus. You've identified certain parts that can be clicked. And so, I mean, they're both very similar in what they ask students to do. To be honest, they are more popular depending on which state test you are using. So if you are in Massachusetts, for example, you'd probably do more of the select text from excerpt. If you are in Ohio, you would probably do more select text from stimulus. And feel free to reach out to our team about which one looks more like your state test. But they're both measuring the same exact skill of clicking to select parts of the text. So what I'm going to do is, again, I added that in, so I'm trashing response A. For this one, I might say select the word that describes, or maybe I'd say, how was Alice beginning to feel? Very low lift question here, but I might copy and paste in Alice was beginning to get very tired of sitting by her sister. And so I could go in here and clicking on that pencil selection area text goes here. I'm pasting in the portion I want to be open for selecting. And I'm going to say that I want them to select words, paragraph, sentence, or custom select. For this one, I'm going to have them select words, and I'm going to say it's a multi-select, and they need to have at least 4 words selected. So I'm going to say very tired, of sitting by her sister. So actually that needs to be 7 words. And so then if I toggle over to the student view, it would ask them to, how is Alice beginning to feel? You should add additional directions, like please click on the words to select your answer. And so they would click on the parts that you've highlighted. And again, it's going to score it for them. More often for state assessments, you're going to see paragraphs, sentences, or custom selections for phrases. So if, let's say though, that is what I want and it's all or nothing scoring, I can go ahead and save it. And again, all of these have been added to my questions, and a different video will talk about how I can scoop those all up into one assessment.